Oh my goodness. Can we just do a big selfie right now with right? Oh my God, this is such a wonderful group, and I've had the honor of speaking to E-Women many times, and so I feel like this is family. I really feel like this is family. Thank you for the gift of being able to present. So we're going to start with a game. Do you guys remember Name That Tune? Okay, we're going to play Name That Tune. We do have prizes. You guys remember Pez's when you were coming up, little Pez's? Okay, I cannot give you the whole Pez dispenser because this is the mother of all Pez dispensers. But check out what this thing dispenses. Full-size Pez's, so we're not messing around, okay? So where is my daughter? Okay, this is Sarah, my lovely daughter Sarah. She's going to be my Vanna. So what we're going to do, we're going to play Name That Tune. Okay, we're going to play I'm going to attempt to sing some TV theme songs, and all you have to do, I want you to scoot back from your table. Don't hurt yourself. Scoot back from your table. Take anything off your lap, because I'm going to attempt to sing a TV theme song, and you're going to jump up, and you're going to shout out the name of the TV theme song, and Sarah or Vanna here is going to give you a Pez. Are you ready? Okay. Here's a story of... All right, right here? Okay, very good. How long has it been since you saw the Brady Bunch?
Oh, goodness.
30 years. Okay, very good. Okay, how about this one? Do-do-do-do, do-do-do. This is a very competitive room. You know that? We're playing for Pez's, okay? Just to be clear. Okay, it was Adam's Family. Okay, Adam's Family. Okay, Dr. Rice, how long has it been since you saw the Addams Family?
Not that long.
Okay, not bad. Okay. Okay, very last one, and I'll tell you why we're playing this game. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale. Well, hold on. She knocked over 3 people, so go ahead. She worked for it. Go ahead. How long has it been since you saw Gilligan's Island? 5 nights ago. Okay, very good. Okay, let me tell you why I begin with that game. It always tickles me to see how TV theme songs can come back sometimes 10 or 20 or 30 years later. How's that possible? It's called branding, right? Those shows branded themselves in your mind. Who can finish this sentence for me? 2 all-beef patties. See, I love that one because you can always tell the over 30 from the under 30, right? Everybody over 30 starts saying it. Everybody under 30 gets a little uncomfortable, starts looking around saying to themselves, what are all these old people talking about? Okay, for those of you who weren't born yet, that was a McDonald's commercial that was popular in 1975. It ran for 8 months in 1975. I'm about to turn 51, so I was 13 at the time, and I was growing up in Detroit, and I had to memorize it, and every kid on my block had to memorize it. Why? Because if we knew it, we could march to our local McDonald's and announce that to a cashier, everybody together. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and what would happen? We got a free one, right? Some groups are telling me they got a Big Mac or large fries or something like that. But why would McDonald's give away millions and millions of dollars of product like that? Branding, right? So that 30-something years later, strangers in Dallas, Texas could repeat it word for word, right? Think about that. McDonald's spent millions of dollars. We're going to teach you how to brand yourself today without spending money. Am I in the right room? Okay, good. If you're spending money doing this, you're not doing it the Jeff Crilly way. Okay, so we're going to get deep into some of the concepts in the book in a minute. But I would be remiss if I didn't give you this gift. The most important thing I could possibly be doing to brand my business is what I'm doing right now. Speaking and give away the gold. Give it away. Nobody likes a speaker who teases you and says, you got to buy my book or you got to do this, and then you'll find out. Give away the gold. Even if you're scared to speak, get over it. Go speak. Go speak. I'm going to tell you the true story about how the book was born and how I overcame my fear of public speaking. I was a TV reporter, Channel 4, so every night I would speak to 200,000 people. But speaking to a room of 10 would terrify me because I'm speaking to a camera, right? So I knew that when I was writing this book, I was going to have to learn how to speak, and I thought to myself, I'm going to have to be better than the average speaker. Why? Because people already expect, if you're on television, you should be comfortable in front of an audience. And so I knew I had to go out there and start speaking. But the truth is, when I had the idea for the book and I was writing the book, I was flat broke. I was making six figures on Channel 4, and I did the stupidest thing a guy could do. I got deep into credit card debt, and I was betting on the stock market using credit cards. Right? It's like taking out a cash advance and going to Vegas and putting it on red. And I was doing it, and my fiance, Victoria Snee, for those of you from the Dallas area, Victoria Snee, she was a broadcaster. She didn't know how much I owed. In fact, I didn't know how much I owed. Have you ever been in so much trouble that you didn't even want to look? Maybe you'd gained a couple pounds and you don't want to step on the scale because you don't want to know how much you weigh. I was in debt and didn't even know how much in debt. And so about 3 weeks before the wedding, my fiance caught me in a lie. I forgot how much I told her I owed the last time. And she asked me how much I owed, and I gave her a number, and it didn't match up with what I told her the last time. And she stopped me, and she said, "How much do you really owe?" And I thought to myself, this is it. This is the scene in my life where I lose my soulmate. Because why would she want to marry a guy who was this deep in debt? I knew it was at least 40, but I wasn't sure how much. And I looked into her eyes, and I started crying. And I sat there on the floor of this apartment, and she hugged me, and she said, we're gonna take care of this. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. We'll cut up the cards. We'll go to CCCS. We'll take care of this. And she stuck with me. I couldn't afford to print the book. I borrowed $10,000 from Victoria. So when the book comes out, I'm motivated, aren't I? I need to sell that book in order to repay my wife who stood by me and believed in me. And so I started this aggressive pace of 300 speeches a year. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Channel 4. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Channel 4. I did this for 6 years. I sold 70,000 copies of the book out of the trunk of my car. And along the way, I built a brand for myself. I built a brand through free speeches to Rotaries, Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs, so that when I finally quit my job at Fox 4 in 2008, beginning of the downturn, think about this, I quit my job in May of 2008. If you'll remember, it was about June that everything collapsed. But because I had run around giving all these speeches, bumping into all these people who had my book, I opened the doors to my PR firm and never looked back. First year, 10 clients. Second year, 20 clients. Third year, 30 clients. Fourth year, 40 clients, and so on. And even to this day, I still speak. I waive my fees. I speak for free. I speak to Rotaries. I give it away. Why? It's the right thing to do. Coming from a spirit of abundance, even back when I didn't have a dime, coming from a spirit of abundance and knowing that if you're a good person and you give from the heart, what happens during a speech is the audience hears your heart, accepts it, and gives it back. There's a love affair that goes on between the audience and a speaker who is in his or her truth. So I'm begging you, if you don't take anything else away from this speech, and I know you're thinking about publicity, even more powerful than publicity is going out there and shouting your message from the mountaintops. Amen? Okay. All right. Now that we've had a good cry, let's get into the happy stuff and the stuff that you came here to hear. Every single one of you has a great story for the media. Not every member of the media cares. 99.9% of this is finding the right reporter to tell your story to. How do you find that reporter? Just ask Google, right? Just ask Google. Google knows all. We don't have to wonder, who the 12th president was, because if we ask Google, I think it's Zachary Taylor, right? You don't have to wonder which reporter would get your story. Just ask Google. So if you put into Google your local paper's name and then what you're an expert in. There's a chapter in the book called Becoming the Expert. And I would say to you, every single person in this room is an expert in what they do for a living. If you're a realtor, you're a real estate expert. If you're in the insurance business, you're an insurance expert. If you're a lawyer, you're a legal expert. The media doesn't even care whether you've been in business for 2 months or 20 years. They just want somebody who is an expert in their field. So I want to tell you about my very first client, and then I'm going to show you a clip. His name was Clint David. He's a civil attorney here in town, and he had contacted Clarice Tinsley from Channel 4 and wanted to hire Clarice Tinsley to coach him to become the legal expert for Channel 4. Well, she politely explained that she doesn't do side business like that, and Jeff Crilly had just left the newsroom to start at his own all-journalist PR firm. Why don't you call Jeff? So Clint David calls me up, and he says, you come highly recommended from Clarice, come to my office. So I come to his office there on the tollway in 635, and I get off the elevator, and there are the leather couches and marble floors, and I'm walking back a sea of attorneys' offices to Clint's office, and we sit down at his little coffee table, and I said, tell me your story. He says, well, I'm in my mid-50s, and I'm kind of bored. I'm checking stuff off my bucket list. And one of the things I couldn't check off my bucket list is becoming the legal guy on TV. He says, it bothers me when I see other lawyers on TV talking about stuff that I could talk about. Could you make me that guy? And I said, absolutely I could. I said, is there anything that you're really passionate about? He says, I practice all kinds of law. So just, pretty much anything legal I can talk about. And so then we got busy. And what I started to do was I started to watch the news differently. I started to say, what legal stories are coming by? You remember the old I Love Lucy episode with the little chocolates going by? And then she and Ethel are, stuffing them in their blouse because they can't process them fast enough. That's what my life is like. Truffles are coming by every single day. Oh, they're shopping for this story today. Oh, they need a legal expert. Oh, they need a medical expert. And I just go off to the conveyor belt and say, hey, I've got a story for you. So let's go ahead and play about 30 seconds or 40 seconds of the Clint David clip. We queued it up on YouTube. And this is a little montage we put together.
Right now, there's a lot more questions than answers.
Clint David is a Dallas attorney.
Dallas attorney Clint David.
He's Attorney Clint David.
Lawyer Clinton David says the landmark ruling could have a major impact in Dallas.
It completely changes how the Corps of Engineers, I believe, is going to do business in the future.
Employment attorney Clint David says that kind of corporate logic is a tough sell to America.
If you want to try to get away with fantasy football and your policies say don't do it, you can try, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Dallas attorney Clint David says provocatively dressed employees are
Okay,
a
you
risk
get the
to
idea, right?
employers.
Let's go ahead and bring it down. So this is what happened. In fact, I consider this a badge of honor because he was so good that the reporters would come over, they'd interview him, and they'd say, oh my God, can I put you in my cell phone? You're great. You're a great soundbite machine. Can I put you in my cell phone? And after just a few months of branding Clint with the local media, they started to call him directly, and I became like a recording service. He'd call me up and he'd say, hey, can you record channel 8 at 5 and channel 4 at 9 tonight, because I'm going to be on. And I hadn't done anything that day to promote him. I would say, really? What are you going to be talking about? And what had happened was I did my job, he did his job, which was be good. And the next thing you know, the media found him. So same thing can happen for you. What are you an expert in? What do you do for a living? When when is the media shopping for what you're talking about, and jump into that window. These windows of opportunity open and they close. They open and they close. So let's talk a little bit about feeding frenzies. There's a chapter in the book called Feeding Frenzies. That means that when the media is talking about your story, you only have a finite number of hours to jump through that window before they're on to the next story. I can remember from 25 years of doing TV news, sometimes PR firms would call me about a client that I needed the day before. And I'd say, why didn't you call me yesterday? That's when we were talking about that story. Today we're on to the next thing. So I'll tell you about a feeding frenzy that we jumped into a year ago. For the last 5 years, my firm has represented the Houston Bridal Extravaganza, huge bridal show, 10,000 brides over the weekend. Well, 1 year ago, if you'll remember, Princess Kate was having her baby. It was the biggest story on the planet, right? In fact, they had hundreds of journalists were parked outside the hospital there in London waiting for this, this magical event, and there was nothing to talk about because nothing had happened yet. And I recognized that feeding frenzy was so huge that we could tie into it. So there's a cake baker in Houston that always does our little crazy stunts. So I called her up. Her name is Nadine Moon. And I said, Nadine, I got an idea. Is there any way that you could make a life-size Princess Kate cake holding a baby? And let's go ahead and pull it up on the screen so you can see it. That's the London Daily Mail. That's the London Daily Mail. She started to assemble this life-size cake on a Thursday, and over the next 3 days, it was just one reporter after another reporter after another reporter interviewing her about this cake and the baby. This story went around the planet several times. Good Morning America picked it up. All we did as a PR firm was sell the media what the media was already buying, right? A lot of PR firms kind of sit around and say, I wonder if the media would buy this. I wonder if the media would buy this. We look at things a different way. We just say, what are they buying today? What are they buying today? So especially for you who are in an area of expertise, you really have to be mindful of when they are aggressively shopping for something that you sell, that's the time to sell it. Okay, I'm going to give you another gift from the book. Slow news days. Slow news days are very important, and people say, how can you predict a slow news day? Well, actually you can. I discovered from 25 years of doing TV news, every time you're around a government holiday, the days leading up to a government holiday and coming away from a government holiday, it's a slow news day. Why? Because half of the news comes from the government. This is today's Dallas Morning News. And I've spoken all over the country, and this experiment works every single time with every single paper. At least half of the stories from the paper come from the government. So this big story right here is U.S. warplanes. So that's Department of Defense. DISD, Dallas Public Schools. Dallas City Hall, municipal government. This one is about Rick Perry and Ted Cruz. I'll leave it in there. Politics are going to go on regardless of whether the government's open or shut. We'll leave that one in there. This is another Department of Defense story. And then all of these stories down here are kind of teasers within the newspaper. But I said half of all news comes from the government, and in today's Dallas Morning News, it's really more like 2/3 of the news comes from the government. So, as my PR student, what you should be doing is saying, okay, if I do want to approach the media about a story, what if I waited until right next to a huge government holiday? So, Labor Day weekend is coming up, I guess, in just a few weeks, right? When does America as a country start mailing it in, going into a Labor Day weekend? Thursday. You know, some people take like a half day on Wednesday. But on Thursday, predictably, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, even Tuesday will be slow. Why? Because America is slowly getting back to work from that long holiday. Most PR firms wind down their business around government holidays. We tell our clients, let's get busy. Get your running shoes on, because we can exploit the imbalance between supply and demand. Right? 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year at Channel 4, my old station, they're doing about 9 hours of news a day. Those morning shows, the noon show, right? When was the last time you heard your local anchor say, sorry folks, nothing happened today, here's Gilligan's Island, right? You've never heard that, and they'd love to say that, but they can't say that. Why? They've sold the commercials. They've sold the commercials. They're going to put out the same amount of news every single day, but when nobody is feeding them, that's the time that you want to jump in there and give them a story. December is a great month for us, right? Because the whole country is going into the holidays. I would say your prime time to get coverage should be Thanksgiving through New Year's. That 6 weeks there, very, very, very slow. And if you have a nonprofit or you have something where there's a give back, what happens during December? That's the month in which we honor nonprofits, right? Goodwill towards man, right? So you're tying into two things, the feeding frenzy and the slow news days. So I don't want to stand between you guys and lunch. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to be over by my booth, and I'll answer questions all day long. But I give free advice, and I want you to come up to me, and I really want you to ask me questions, because I want to pour into you what I've learned. Okay? My favorite story, thank you. So my favorite story of all time, this happened, gosh, 15 years ago. I was doing a segment called Really Crilly, which was just the lighter side of the news. It was the lighter side of the news. And this is the day after Thanksgiving. So let me tell you what happens on the day after Thanksgiving. We talked about slow news days, right? Every reporter on the planet is lighting candles to the news gods, praying for something to happen so they're not at the mall that day. Right? I remember that was my personal Groundhog Day. You remember Bill Murray and Groundhog Day? That was my personal Groundhog Day, because I knew what I was doing on the day after Thanksgiving for the rest of my news career. One of 9 mall reports, right? I could hear myself. Well, that's it from North Park Mall. Let's go live now to James Rose at Stonebriar Mall. James, what's going on at your mall? Well, there's shopping here too, Jeff. So it's the day after Thanksgiving. We're praying for something to happen, and we get a nut call. And I promise you, every station in America gets these crazies that will call in, reporting UFOs and stuff like that. This was really out there. And normally we would have said, call Channel 8. But because I was doing my wacky side of the news segment, they said, hold on, we're going to put you on with Jeff Crilley. So they yell across the newsroom, they say, Crilly, pick up line 1. It's a live one. And I knew what that meant. That meant it was a nut call I was going to have to blow off. So I took this call with great apprehension. And the guy says, my name is Sean Walker. I'm a turkey farmer from Kemp, Texas, about 35 miles southeast of here. And I've got this one turkey that I just didn't have the heart to slaughter. And I said, okay, Sean, that's great. Tell me more about this turkey. What's so special about this turkey? He says, well, the reason I couldn't slaughter this one turkey is because the turkey looks too much like Elvis. I said, how's that? He says, the turkey looks too much like Elvis. I said, Sean, I'm starting to dig you now, but I'm going to have to explain to my bosses how a turkey can possibly look like Elvis to justify this trip to Kemp. Could you explain that to me? He says, well, you know that little flap of skin on the turkey's beak? If you take it and flip it back, it looks like the Elvis hairdo. I was so excited. I said, Sean, you are not to touch a feather on that bird's head till we get down there. So I grabbed a photographer, and we start racing to Kemp. Now, at this point, I made a strategical error because I grabbed the wrong photographer. I grabbed Becky Oliver's photographer. And if you're not from Dallas-Fort Worth, Becky is kind of like Bill O'Reilly and Geraldo's love child, right? This is an investigative reporter who is very scary. She's the one who chases you down the street with the camera saying, stop, we got you on tape. That lady, you don't want to meet her. I used to work with her. I was scared of her. I remember I'd be putting money in the vending machine, and she'd sneak up behind me. She'd say, Jeff, what are you up to? I'd say, stay back, stay back. Okay, well, her photographer's not normal. This guy spends most of his waking hours in the back of a van spying on workers' comp cheats, right? So he failed to grasp the significance of the Elvis Turkey. And I'm trying to explain it to him all the way down to Kemp, why this is the holy grail I've been searching for my entire news career. I said, come on, man, you can't see it. It's the Elvis Turkey. He couldn't see it. In fact, come to think of it, he was giving me the same look you guys are giving me right now. So I wish he'd work with me on this. So we get down there. He's giving me such a hard time about this turkey that I'm really, this has got to pay off, right? The payoff's got to be there. So we're walking through the barnyard. We come to this turkey, and Sean points to it with great pride and says, there's Elvis. Folks, this thing looked nothing like the king. I looked at the photographer. He says, Crilly, 3 words. Long ride home. I wasn't giving up on Sean just yet. I said, hold on. Sean, do the little flap with the skin and the beak thing. So he reaches down, he grabs that little flap of skin, and goes, plink. We still don't see it. I look back at the photographer. He's in glee. He says, Crilly, you are never going to live this down. And I knew this was the photographer who was going to lord this over me for the rest of my news career, right? I could hear his voice 10 years in the future. Sure, Jeff, is this going to be another Elvis Turkey story? So now I'm shaking. I'm so upset. I said, Sean, work with me, brother. Is that Elvis during the younger years? Or the later years? What are we looking at here? And he says, wait a minute, you haven't heard Elvis sing. I said, wow, Elvis sings. So I turned to the photographer and I said, roll on this, fool. So he grabs both wings and he starts dancing with the bird in the barnyard. He's singing lead, Elvis is singing backup. He says, one for the money, gobble, gobble, gobble. 2 for the show, gobble, gobble, gobble. 3 to get ready. I told you it was a slow news day. Some of you are looking at me like, see, Jeff, that's why I never watched your channel. So even the photographer who hated this story gives me a big high five. He says, now that was good. He had to admit it was the funniest piece of tape he'd ever recorded. So we get back in the car. We're racing back towards Dallas. The light bulb goes off over my head. I'm thinking, wait a minute. If it's a slow day in Dallas-Fort Worth, I bet it's slow all over the country. I'm calling Fox, New York. Well, I was too excited to do this because I started doing bird noises for this guy in New York, and I could hear him cup the phone and shout to Bill O'Reilly, you're not going to believe this. We got a joker on the phone from Dallas. He says he's got a turkey, and how soon can we get it in? I said, it'll be ready in 2 hours. But I didn't stop there because I knew if it's slow at Fox New York, it's got to be slow at CNN in Atlanta. I was right. They were lighting candles all over the South. So I pitched them the same story. They couldn't wait to get it done. I get back to the TV station, and I do the report for Channel 4 Local, and then I do out cues for the networks. Jeff Crilly reporting for Fox News. Jeff Crilly reporting for CNN. True story. Sean and Elvis went global that night. Sean had friends stationed in the Gulf in ships watching him from their bunk on CNN dancing with a turkey. And they called him up that night and they said, Sean, did you have to mention Kemp? But I'm sharing that simple story with you for a reason. Think about this. Sean got lucky. Sean had no clue what he was doing. All he did was tie into several news winds that he didn't know were going on at the same time. He was tying into 2 feeding frenzies, right? The feeding frenzy surrounding Thanksgiving and the feeding frenzy that will eternally be Elvis, right? He's calling on a very slow news day. Who's calling the media on the day after Thanksgiving? Not the government, not corporate America. The journalists were starving. But most importantly, he's talking to the only reporter on the surface of the planet who wouldn't hang up on the clown. And it got global coverage. So here's what I'm saying. if a turkey farmer from Kemp, Texas could get international publicity completely by accident, can't you get local news attention on purpose? Come up with your own Elvis Turkey stories and the media will gobble them up. Thank you.